This week on the show, eBay is chasing ghosts while Etsy is fighting some gremlins. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 252 of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan. If you're new to the channel, I am a full-time reseller, part-time YouTuber, and podcaster bringing you all the reselling news that you need to know. We've got quite a lineup of stuff this week with some updates from eBay, some stuff going on over at Etsy, one from Poshmark, and one just random thing that I stumbled on that I thought was interesting that I thought I would share. In the back half of the show, we do have a little bit of a change to the What Sold recap. We'll go over that when we get to it. As always, there will be timestamps in the show notes and the video description below if you want to go to a particular segment. Speaking of segments, let's get into this news update.
News updates.
So eBay apparently is out to track the root cause of what they call ghost listings. This article is over on e-commerce bites, and as always, I will link to these in the show notes and the video description down below. Ghost listings, they say, have haunted eBay sellers for years. As far back as 2017, sellers were talking about sold listings that became active again due to what most attribute to an eBay glitch, given the chronic nature and the number of ghost listings reported. Let me know in the comments if you have had this happen to you. I have gone through a lot of listings. I've got almost 11,000 current. I've sold nearly 22,000. That's just in the last less than 5 years. So that's 30-odd thousand listings that have gone kind of up and down, and I have not yet experienced this, at least to my knowledge. I don't have anything listed that I don't actually have. So let me know in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube if this is something that's happened to you. On Friday, a seller with the handle Comics Sci-Fi Collectibles, who's a member of eBay's mentor program, posted a thread on the eBay discussion boards titled How to Report Ghost Listings. The seller said eBay now has a way to report these listings and posted the following information that they said came directly from eBay. A ghost listing occurs when an item that has been sold reappears for sale without the seller's intent to relist, seemingly relisted by eBay. Now, remember, this is eBay saying that this is a problem that they have. They seem to believe that this is actually something going wrong, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it, apparently. When faced with a ghost listing, sellers are put in a difficult position. They must either cancel the transaction due to the item being out of stock, which unfortunately results in an out-of-stock listing defect on their account, or they must find an alternative solution, such as sourcing the item elsewhere to fulfill the order for the buyer. Now, in a lot of cases, that's not going to work either. Like in my case, for instance, I have one business day handling. I can't source another item. It's unlikely I would be able to source some of my items anyway, because they're all kind of one-off books and whatnot. So it would be very difficult. I would still get an item defect because I would ship it late. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. If this happens, you're just kind of stuck. We are actively working to address and prevent these occurrences, and your detailed reports are invaluable to our efforts, they say. Comics Sci-Fi Collectibles included instructions on how to report incidents of ghost listings. Another seller, who is also a member of this mentor program over at eBay, confirmed the information. Ma'am 98031, that doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? Was info shared with the mentors, and we are sharing it with sellers in the hopes of getting more detailed reports sent into eBay so eBay can hopefully get a handle on this thing that has been a problem for years, they said. The fact that members of eBay's mentor program got the company engaged enough to advise on a way to report the issue is an accomplishment, this article notes, but some on the thread wondered why eBay didn't post the information itself. And I guess that's fair enough. I don't know that I really care where the information comes from. As long as it gets out and they're trying to tackle this problem, I'm fine with it. But kudos to these guys or ladies, whoever they are. It's hard to tell from the usernames, for getting this information out into the public. And again, kudos to eBay for at least making an effort to try to tackle this issue. Speaking of an issue that they said they were going to tackle, that does not seem to be getting tackled. eBay is banging this drum about saying it will fix feedback issues. So they posted on the main Seller Hub page and on the seller announcement board essentially the same information that was covered in the summer seller check-in that the executive had shared during the presentation back on June 6th, that they acknowledged that the feedback removal had become arbitrary and was a problem. They essentially, like I said, posted the same information in an effort to make feedback more fair and transparent to both buyers and sellers. eBay recently made changes to feedback addressing some aspects of our removal policies that led to inconsistent outcomes. We are addressing these gaps and apologize for any confusion or frustration you may have experienced. We take your feedback seriously and commit to doing better while we strive to improve the eBay platform for everyone. Andrea Stairs, eBay's VP of Global Regulatory Trust and Monetization, provided the following update on feedback at the recent summer check-in. I actually played that clip for you a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not going to rehash all of this other than to say that they then said this week, new changes to our feedback policy. We are glad to announce that more than a dozen feedback policy changes have now taken effect on eBay. She had said during the summer seller check-in that they were working on about a dozen updates to the policy that we're going to roll out fairly quickly. As we go forward, we'll be adding more use cases where feedback removal is warranted. For just one example, we will remove feedback when a seller denies a buyer's cancellation request because per eBay policy, a seller has discretion to accept or deny a cancellation request. That is the same example and the only example that she gave at summer seller check-in, which also caused some people to question, why do we keep harping on this one example? I guess it's because it's a pretty clear-cut one where there is a policy that says you can do this and you should not be dinged for it. They add, finally, we're dedicating staff to finding and investigating more removal inconsistencies. What this means is that when you submit the form via seller help to request feedback removal, eBay team members will be able to remove feedback in more scenarios and do so more consistently. Removal requests will be reviewed individually by our customer service agents, they said. Herein lies the rub. I'm seeing both on Instagram and on YouTube, eBay users saying that this has not been the case, at least for this would essentially be less than a week's worth. So maybe we need to give it some time to roll out. But the initial feedback is that the policy changes, in one case, I think it was Steve, Resale Dojo, who posted on feedback that he was told by a customer service rep that there were no policy changes regarding feedback removal, where clearly they have harped on the fact that there are nearly a dozen changes. So there's some miscommunication somewhere along the line. This has not rolled out smoothly. Again, let me know in the comments below. Have you tried to get feedback removed in the last week or so? And what was your experience like? As I said, I've seen a couple of sellers comment that they have tried recently to get feedback removed for things like a customer with a item with a free return. I think this was Steve's situation. He offers free returns. Somebody was left negative feedback on the item, but never tried to return the item. And he feels, and I tend to agree, that that is a situation where the customer did not avail themselves of what eBay encourages sellers to do, which is to offer free returns. And if they don't take some sort of action to try to allow the seller to make the thing right, when the seller is jumping through eBay's hoops, Steve says, and I agree, I don't think you should be eligible to receive negative feedback for that. That feedback should be removed. I disagree with that 100%. If I'm offering you free returns, I am opening the door, if you are dissatisfied, to get satisfaction. You should not be able to leave me negative feedback without at least making the effort to use that option. If you do, and I choose to turn down the return for whatever reason, then all bets are off. But I agree with Steve on that one. eBay also announced an expansion of the luxury handbag authentication with an add-on option for items below $500. This article is over on Value Added Resource, which I really like, by the way. I just stumbled on this a few weeks ago thanks to a post on Instagram from Colorado Reworn, and this site is terrific. If you're looking to keep up with reselling news beyond this wonderful podcast that you're listening to right now, this is a really terrific site. Anyway, eBay is expanding luxury handbag and wallet authentication to include items under $500, but for a fee. Currently, select brands of handbags and wallets over $500 qualify for eBay's Authenticity Guarantee program at no additional cost. If a seller lists eligible items in those categories, the product will automatically be routed through the authentication process before being sent on to the buyer. It appears, however, sometime in the last month, they have also added an option on select handbags and wallets between $200 and $499.99 for opters to opt in for authentication for a, wait for it, $40 fee. I don't sell in that category. If you do, let me know. Excess baggage, if you're listening, let me know. Is that something that you would opt into for $40? That would be a hard no from me. That seems like a lot of money for authentication. Maybe not at the $500 price point, but at the $200 price point, that seems like a pretty big bite. Qualifying items will show the add-on option on the listing page, and it can be selected in the cart at checkout to pay the additional fee. Now that if the buyer is going to pay the fee, then I'm all about it. But if I'm paying the fee as the seller, I think I would be out on that program. But it is something that's available. Again, let me know in the comments if that is something you think you would use. This is only kind of related to eBay because it happened on eBay. This article popped up on the Consequence of Sound, which is kind of a music site. The Kinks' Dave Davies to reunite with lost Rock and Roll Hall of Fame trophy after it was listed on eBay. Davies lost track of the award after suffering a stroke back in 2004. I'm unfortunately, I'm old enough I remember the Kinks, although I remember them in a later guise, like in the mid 70s, not their original 60s version. But the Kinks' Dave Davies will be reunited with his long-lost Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction trophy after it turned up listed on eBay earlier this month. The Kinks guitarist posted about the circumstance on Twitter, that would be X, on Thursday, explaining that he lost track of my award years ago and didn't know where it was until seeing the eBay auction. Continuing, he wrote that the trophy was likely acquired after a storage unit of his sold off items in 2004 after he was incapacitated by a stroke. I'm grateful to have made a full recovery from my stroke, but it's a shame that I wasn't contacted. I'm assuming this is what happened, he tweeted, giving the person the benefit of the doubt. After finding the eBay auction, which was made by former record store Colony Records, Davies reports that his team wrote to the seller and are waiting to hear back. I don't want to have to pay $12,000 to get my own award back, but maybe we can work something out more reasonable. Shortly after that, Colony Records reached out to Davies via a tweet saying they would work it out. So kudos to everyone involved in that. That's a wild story. Can you imagine being like a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame award winner and finding your trophy on eBay? Wild stuff there. So moving on over to Etsy. They continue to push for the rollout of their new seller listing form, which is fraught with peril. They're continuing to fight Gremlins with this. Etsy sellers worry about pricing problems in new listing form as old listing form set to retire. This article is titled, Etsy sellers are in a panic about pricing problems in the new listing form as the clock is winding down to retirement of the old form that is currently the only way to work around this troubling technical issue. That's problematic. This post said, beware if you change the price of a copied listing. The price change in the new listing format doesn't stick. Now I have to also figure out if other changes I made stuck, was what the writer said. Using new listing format, copied an old listing, changed all the particulars and saved it so I could get measurements for the item. Opened the listing, entered the measurements, decided to mark the price higher, then published the listing. The old price shows live. Went back to edit the live listing, showing the wrong price on my end. It shows the price I want it to be. Published it again, still the wrong price. I even had my daughter, who doesn't live here, check my shop, and she saw it was the wrong price too. My initial thought when I saw this was that this was a browser cache issue, because I've seen this on things where I have posted an update to a listing, not necessarily price and not necessarily even on Etsy, and then gone to look at the item, and the browser is showing me the cached information, the old information. And if I clear out the browser and then reload that item, then it comes up correctly. But this obviously is not the case here, because someone else on a completely different browser in a completely different location checked it and found that this was still showing the wrong price. I was able to change the price, this seller said, within the old listing format, and there it stuck. Had the same problem today, was told by Etsy support to go back to the old form and make the change, which is awesome for the remaining, whatever it is, a handful of days that the old listing form is going to be up. It goes away, I think, this week. Good thing we have the Switch in a few days. Good thing Etsy rolled out a form with so many issues and we get to diagnose the bugs. And that to me, to be fair, I try to be pretty supportive of these platforms, but this one is really a problem. They have been testing this new listing form for, I think it's been almost a year, and they're still finding these bugs. And, or should I say they, we, it's us, it's the sellers. We're finding these bugs with the thing, which is always the case. I mean, you see it in video games and just software generally. You roll it out to the public and people inevitably find things that the testers did not find and whatever. But they've been working on this for a year. Beta testers have been checking it for a year, and we're just now finding some of this stuff. And it's literally a week to go before the new form comes out. It's concerning that the best suggestion, the article continues, Etsy support can muster for dealing with this issue is simply to switch back to the old version of the listing form, since that version is set to be discontinued and no longer available on June 25th, which as of recording is like 2 or 3 days from now. And they continue. They have had sellers who have asked repeatedly since they announced this deadline that they delay this turning off of the old form, and they are stuck on rolling out this new form and shutting down the old one. And I gotta be honest, I don't understand why the big push to get people off that old form. I'm not having any issues with the old or with the new form. The only thing I don't like about it is the old form did show what the shipping charges were going to be. The new form currently does not, although I noticed starting like Wednesday or Thursday of this week, it does now pop up and say that that is something that they're working on. So good enough, whatever. That seems to be the least of the problems with the form at this point, but at least they're trying. So still missing important functionality. This was an article we talked about, gosh, a couple of weeks ago. There's still some things that are not working. Not good, and we've only got a couple of days to go. In the most recent update posted to the Etsy community about the listing form change, a community manager acknowledged other issues with the new form that were supposedly fixed. Our team recently identified an issue impacting the ability to bulk edit listings for some members, which they say has been resolved. Upon investigation, our team uncovered that one of our latest updates to the listing manager had unintentionally caused this issue. The functionality is back to normal, and you should now be able to resume bulk editing your listings. We also identified an issue with renewing sold out listings and are working on fixing this within the next week. That was one that we talked about, I think, a couple of weeks ago as well. So let me know. How's things going for you over on Etsy? I've not had, again, knock wood, personally, I've not had any problems. Etsy is working as expected. No issues. It's been fine for me. But clearly there are some problems continuing to plague Etsy. Speaking of, does the Etsy Buy More and Save test fit its ethos? This one is over on e-commerce bites. Etsy is testing a new feature to tempt shoppers who are looking to save money. The marketplace said this week it's testing a new Buy More and Save badge, inviting a small group of sellers into the test for a limited time. They said, quote, for sellers who offer discounts when buyers purchase more than one of the same item, a badge will appear on selected listings, making it easier for deal-seeking buyers to get a discount on their purchase. And the more the buyers purchase, the more they save, a win for both sellers and shoppers. In the future, if we decide to roll out this new tool, you'll be the first to know. This is kind of like eBay and the multi-item purchase discount where, you know, buy two, get one for a discount, or buy two, get one free, or whatever, however you want to set it up. There's multiple options. Etsy is now trying something similar. Etsy, best known for handmade goods and vintage items, has always pitched itself as a place to go for special items rather than a place for discounted goods. That is true, but as we talk about pretty regularly on this show, Etsy is a publicly traded company, and they need results. Their growth has been flat. Their sales have been flat. They need to find a way to appease their shareholders and generate some additional revenue, and they obviously have decided that offering additional discounts. They've run more sales recently, more promotions. They did one for Mother's Day. They did one for Father's Day, although that one was fraught with peril as well. I don't think I talked about that, but apparently if you put in whatever percentage of discount or a price level where you didn't want to offer the discount, it misread where the decimal place was, and it was offering just crazy discounts on all kinds of stuff. So lots of technical issues over at Etsy. A seller said in a post on Reddit in May they'd been invited to this test feature and were able to add the badge to just 4 out of 200 listings. The letter they received from Etsy stated the following: "We've reviewed your listings and found one or more items that may be eligible for this badge. Take a minute to review and confirm settings where you offer a discount for buying more of the same item." So these would be kind of the things, I guess, where it's a multiple quantity item, not necessarily multiple items from your shop, but something that you have more than one of. It's important, they said, not to mislead buyers. Don't add this badge to listings that don't offer quantity-based discounts. Another seller wrote on Reddit last month, in part, "This would have been a great feature if we can select it ourselves. Not only that, but there hasn't been an article posted from Etsy about this. It just showed up on my listing dashboard and a message from Etsy. I'm the sort of person who would want to read up more on this so I understand it better." And this is something I've talked about, God, seemingly forever on this show. I beat this drum about transparency and communication. And all of these companies, God love them, are, in some cases, they're okay about it and they try to communicate things, but there are other things where, I don't know, man, it's like nuclear secrets. Yeah, they're trying to give you a tool, but they don't want to explain who's eligible to use it, how it works. Just share with us the information so that we as sellers can make informed decisions on whether or not it's something we want to participate in. I don't understand why that is so difficult. You can let me know in the comments why you think that might be so difficult. But man, oh man. Sellers who offer incentives to shoppers to buy more may appreciate the badge. Others say the badge makes Etsy look like a discounter. Let us know where you stand on the issue. So there you go. That's what's going on over at Etsy. Last bit of news, this is over on Modern Retail about Poshmark. They have finally launched their latest live shopping bet, which is Posh Party Live. That's kind of a mouthful to say fast. They're ramping up their bet on live stream shopping with a new offering called Posh Party Live. This latest feature is a beefed up version of the platform's Posh Parties, which are real-time shopping events where sellers and shoppers get together on the company's app in a virtual room of sorts and share items according to a curated theme. Previously, these events weren't live streamed, but instead were hosted in a chat room like forum. With Posh Party Live, buyers and sellers can now browse and purchase items over live video. So this would be kind of a shot across the bow of like Whatnot, for instance. The new Posh Party Live events will also include curated listings and merchandise according to specific themes, whether that's summer dresses, animal print, or quiet luxury. A real-time feed from the app's homepage will showcase various parties that are happening, as well as live shopping auctions and an assortment of curated listings that have been shared by Poshmark users. Sellers can host their own live stream to match the theme or share an individual closet listing, which can be spotlighted in the party feed. The tool also lets party hosts merge two streams together, combining traffic numbers and potentially boosting sales. They say for sellers, it's an opportunity to leverage the followings of some of the platform's biggest sellers to gain new customers and drive sales. You sense a theme here. They're all trying to drive more business and more revenue. And some of them are doing it with changes in fee structures, and some of them are trying to do discounts or other marketing tools to generate the same kind of results. Brands which have been increasingly testing out Poshmark's live stream services can also take advantage of this new feature by collaborating with users to sell items. This comes about a year after the party debuted Posh Shows, which was the company's first foray into live stream shopping and selling. Since South Korean tech giant Naver acquired Poshmark last year, live stream shopping has emerged as the platform's most significant business strategy. So again, they have probably seen some of the success of sites like Whatnot and decided that this is an area that they want to capitalize on. If you are a seller on Poshmark, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of this feature? Is this something, have you used any of the live streaming features that have previously been available on Poshmark? And what do you think of this new one? The volume of Posh Shows, they say, has exploded. So how do you curate that? How do you bring people together? Said the CEO of Posh. That's what we're trying to do with Posh Party Live. This push into live shopping seems to be gaining traction. More than 1 million Posh shows have been hosted since the technology was released in April of last year. The average number of shows hosted daily has increased 57% since the technology was released, according to a company representative. Average total watch time per day climbed by 51%. It's one of the fastest growing businesses we've ever built in our history. They say it's also adding up to bigger sales for the platform's approximately 130 million users. The number of sellers earning at least $100,000 a year on Poshmark has climbed by nearly 50%. though they're not real clear about what the connection between those two things is there. So, well, I'll take that with a grain of salt. For Newport Beach, California-based seller Sammy Moreno, Poshmark's live selling platform has enabled her to pay her bills and rent when she's in between gigs. Typically, she hosts 5 shows a week for several hours starting at 10 in the morning. She sold $34,000 worth of inventory last year, mostly apparel, including plus-size clothes, and estimates that she will earn more by the end of this year. The growth of Poshmark's live shopping tech hasn't taken away from the company's in-person events. However, in fact, the introduction of live selling has buoyed Poshmark's physical events, which include local meetups known as Posh and Connect and its annual conference Posh Fest, as well as other live events the company puts on. The popularity of these events, they say, over the last year has been on the rise, much bigger than what we saw even in pre-COVID times. In some cases, we've added live selling and live shows to these parties, so that whole format has become very engaging and exciting. Live shopping, they say, remains a nascent market in the U.S. compared to China, where the technology is much more common. Live stream e-commerce in China is expected to grow 25% to a whopping $703 billion this year. Only 14% of adults in the U.S. have bought something from a live stream shopping event, according to eMarketer. Let me know, have you bought anything? Have you shopped on whatnot? Have you made a purchase in a live streaming event? Hand up, I have not. I don't know that I've ever even been to one. I poked around a little bit on whatnot, and I've not decided to proceed there just yet, but I have not purchased anything that way. TikTok's live shopping tool, TikTok Shop, has gained some momentum in the U.S. since it was released last fall, but currently faces, of course, a nationwide ban if it doesn't separate from its Chinese-owned parent company. Within the year, the platform has also been buggy as it works out various kinks, creating pain points for the brands and shoppers alike. So let me know what you think of all of this live kind of stuff going on with these different platforms. I'm not, I gotta say, I'm not convinced. It's not something that I have done yet, but we'll see. I know some of you sell on whatnot, so let us know your thoughts. If you've sold on the Posh live things, let us know that as well. If you have gotten anything out of this, hey, please do me a favor before we get into this What Sold. Take just a moment and click that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube to let YouTube know this was a good use of your time. With that having been said, let's get into this What Sold segment. So I'm making a little bit of a change here in what this actually is going to look like. So I have always, in the What Sold segment, just kind of gone over what the item sold for, where it sold, and essentially roughly what I paid for it at an estate sale or a garage sale. And I've decided that maybe I should give you a little bit more information. So going forward, especially if you're watching on YouTube, the graphics that are with this portion of the show are also going to show essentially all my costs, with the exception of the bubble mailer that I used to ship the thing. So speaking of transparency, try to be a little more transparent with how much money I'm actually making on some of these things. I'm not going to read all of this off. So those of you listening to the podcast, you'll still get the big picture of it. But if you're watching on YouTube, you're essentially seeing everything. I have listed the item sold price, how much I collected for shipping and sales tax, and what that order total is. I've broken out my actual fees separately from the ad fees. So if there's an offsite ad fee over on Etsy or a promoted listing fee on eBay, that's going to show sales tax paid and shipping cost. 95% of those things are going to be exactly what was collected. So I probably won't talk about those very often unless I've made a change in the shipping. For instance, if something was cheaper to ship Ground Advantage and I netted a little bit of money there. It'll include the cost of goods sold, my total costs, and then net profit. So again, let me know if you find this helpful or informative. Again, you can hit that thumbs up button. So let's get started here. This first item sold, everything I think this week sold on eBay. I mentioned in my Instagram post over the weekend that it was a pretty mediocre week on Mercari and Etsy. I think I did 4 sales on Etsy after having a dozen the week before, and I had a whopping 1 sale over on Mercari. So this is all, I'm pretty sure, today from eBay. This Deception, KGB Target America by Heed Massing. This was a first Ivy Books paperback printing from 1987. I'd picked this up as part of that big 15,000 book lot, so I'm into it for 4 whole cents. This sold for $22 plus shipping. The order total was $27.45. Fees were $4.09, no ad fee. It shipped for what the customer paid. So the net profit on this $22 sale after everything was $17.87. Another old book. This is from the big estate buyout that I did of all the antique books. I don't know if it was the last week or 2 weeks ago. I sold the book that was missing a bunch of pages. This is another one that is really old. It's from 1834, but it had not missing pages, but it did have a couple of pages that were loose. So I wasn't comfortable trying to max out the value on this thing. It was pretty rough looking. This is The Life of Benjamin Franklin, written by himself. This was volume 1 of a 2-volume set, again, published in 1834, hard leather cover, published by a company called McCarty and Davis. Because of the condition, I set this up at an auction. I started it at, I think, like maybe $13 or $14.99. It ultimately sold for $22 plus shipping. The fees were $4.42. No ad fees. I do not promote auction listings, so $4.42 in fees. Shipping was $5.61. My cost of goods sold on this was 91 cents as part of that bulk buy. So my total costs $13.22. Leaving me a net profit of $16.67 on a sold price of $22. Another old book. This was from a lot that I bought, a couple of summers ago. Was probably 2,000 or 3,000 books. $50 billion. Jesse Jones with Edward Angley. This was written in 1951. It was a hardcover, signed, but a second printing. I received an offer on this with a discount of $24.74 plus shipping. Paid $4.83 in fees. Again, no promoted listing fee. I'm on a nice run here with that. All told, my costs were $13.14. So a $24.74 book netted me $19.75. Another old book. This is also from the 15,000 book lot, General Ike Eisenhower by Delos Lovelace from 1944. So this is World War II era. The war's still going on. And we got a biography on General Eisenhower. It was an illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket, published by Thomas Y. Crowell. Had it listed for $29.99. Got a watcher, and I sent out an offer. Sold it for $25.49 plus shipping. This one did have promoted fees on it, so I paid the regular fees of $3.95. Promoted fees standard of $2.24. So my cost of goods sold was, again, 4 cents roughly on this. Total cost $12.67. So on a $25.49 book, I made $19.26. This was an interesting old book. This I picked up again at the same estate sale that had all the Australian stuff and the antique books. So Eero Saarinen, An Architecture of Multiplicity. This is a 2006 first edition paperback written by Antonio Roman. I had it listed for $32.99. Got a watcher, sent out an offer of $28.04. Total order was $35.33 with shipping and tax. There were fees of $5.15, promoted listing standard fees of $2.47, 91-cent cost of goods sold. So $28.04 book sold, netted me $19.51. This was a weird one. I was at a garage sale, and this little card, ProMaster 7824 USB 3.0 SD UHS-2 card reader, SD and micro SD with 4K capability, new in a package, was sitting in a box of stuff that was labeled 50 cents, and it had a price sticker on it for $29.95. I didn't really see any of these listed online at the time I bought it. It's an older item. I figured for 50 cents it was worth the gamble. It had, like I said, the price sticker on it for $29.95. So that's what I put it on eBay for, $29.95 plus shipping, and that's what it finally sold for. Again, fees of $4.68, promoted listing standard fee $2.70, total costs $15.18, including my 50 cents cost of goods sold. So this item, $29.95, netted me $23.36. This is also from the estate sale buyout with the Australian books and the antique books, A History of the English-Speaking Peoples, written by Winston Churchill. This is a reprint of a set of books that was published, I think, in the 1960s. This was published in 1990. It was a hardcover, 4-volume hardcover box set. I recorded this as one unit because it was a box set, so my cost of goods sold was the same as the other books. 91 cents is how I recorded this into my accounting. It sold for $32.99 plus, again, shipping. Here's one of those cases where medium mail shipping for the size and weight came up at $9.32. But when I put this in, commercial rate, ground advantage, cubic shipping actually ended up being $7.84. So I elected to send this by ground advantage. It was cheaper for me and theoretically faster for the customer. So I have no objection to doing that. In a lot of cases, I'll just shoot a quick message to the buyer, say, hey, I upgraded your shipping to ground advantage so they know it's coming quicker and a different way. But if I can save a couple bucks, that helps pay for all these extra fees that they're getting on the shipping. So this sold for $32.99 plus shipping. The order total was $45.63. Transaction fees $6.54, ad fees again $3.19, shipping again $7.84. Saved a little bit there, 91 cents cost of goods sold. So a $32.99 item netted me $23.83 at the end of the day. These also came from that sale. My cost of goods sold on these was recorded as 0 because as I was leaving, it was the granddaughter of the person whose estate it was, and she came walking up to me and she says, hey, I've got these like bookends. Do you want them? You can just have them. So I said, well, sure, of course I will take them. There was not a lot of identifying marks on these. They were obviously old. They had an emblem on them. They looked like kind of hammered brass bookends. So the emblem, when I did a Google photo search, came back as Yale University, Lux et Veritas. So I listed them as such, vintage Yale University hammered brass bookends with a Hebrew emblem on them, which is what Google spat back out at me when I sent the picture. I initially tried these at auction at $29.99, and it was nothing. Nobody looked at them, nobody watched them. It just was absolute nothing. So when the auction ran its course and ended, I raised the price by $6, made it $35.99 with a best acceptable offer of $30 just to see what would happen. And lo and behold, they sold for $35.99 plus shipping. These were listed with ground advantage shipping. I charge retail rate to the customer. I'm not passing along that discount. So the customer paid $10.80 for shipping. The order total was $50.94. I paid $6.06 in transaction fees, $3.57 in ad fees. My shipping was only $6.12 though, so I made a little over $4 just in the shipping. Cost of goods sold again was 0. She just gave these to me, so total cost $19.90 left me with a net profit of $31.04 on a $35.99 item. I will take that. I have had these games for a very long time. These games were made in 1991 by the Ravensburger company. It's called Snitch. What's missing? I picked these two things up at a garage sale for, it was part of a big lot of stuff I bought. I recorded them into my accounting for like $3.17 a piece. And I've had them for the longest time. You can see if you're watching on YouTube, they sold with my 35% off promotion this month. But one person bought both of them. So the total sale ended up being $36.38. They paid shipping, ground advantage again of $10.35, but my actual shipping costs were only $5.95. So again, a little over $4 profit on the shipping. Total order was $50 even. I paid $5.96 in fees, no ad fees. So my net profit on these was $28.48 on a $36.38 order. I probably would not buy these again. I had bought a bunch of old books at an estate sale, and in the lot of books were these small Whitman little books, kind of not really completely children's books, but kind of illustrated. They had would one page of text, and then the other page would be a photo, and they were like, I don't know, maybe 4x4 square, really small little books. Some of them didn't have a ton of value, but some of them looked pretty good. I paid $1 a piece for everything I bought at that sale, so I don't have a bunch of money tied up in these, and some of them, like this one, were pretty good. Alley Oop, The Invasion of Moo, again, a Whitman little book by V.T. Hamlin. Little illustrated book from 1935. I had it listed and it sold for $37.99 plus shipping. The order total was $42.12. Paid $5.08 in fees, $2.95 in ad fees. Cost of goods sold was $1, so $37.99 netted me $28.96. So I stopped at a church sale, and sometimes I have really good luck at church sales, and sometimes there's just not much there. This was a case where I spent maybe 20 minutes at this sale, and I found just this single item. And I've had it for a while, but it paid off. Adventures of the Sea by Edward L. Leach. This was a Dell paperback box set. It included the book Run Silent, Run Deep. So this is like military kind of seamanship books in a slipcase in pretty nice shape. I picked it up for $1. I had it listed, I believe, for $69.99. I got a best offer of $55, which I accepted. $55 plus shipping. Order total $63.17. I did pay $8.90 in selling fees and $4.42 in promoted listings fees, in addition to the shipping and my buck cost of goods sold. Total costs were $22.49, leaving me a net profit of $40.68. And last, but definitely not least, so I talked about last week I bought a bunch of like science and mechanical engineering books at this sale, at this estate sale, and I bought 122 books for $200. I've sold several of the lesser priced ones already, and then I got an offer on this bad boy, the ASM Handbook, Volume 9, Metallography and Microstructures. This was from ASM International back in 2004. There were a lot of these books out there in different volumes, different titles, but nobody had volume 9. So I kind of aimed for the moon on this one. I believe I had it listed for either $139 or $149.99 or best offer. I received an offer on this of $120. I own it for $1.64, so of course I took that. 120 bucks plus shipping. Net total on the order was $129.32. I paid $17.80 in transaction fees, but no ad fees for this. They did not click a promoted listing. Shipping was $9.32. This was a case where the book was so heavy and it was going to California, so media mail still ended up being the cheaper option. That's why I talk about how often it pays to look, because sometimes one will be cheaper and sometimes not. So, but again, in this case, $9.32. My total selling costs were $28.76 on this item, leaving me a net profit of $100.56, which, if you're doing the math at home, essentially paid for about half of that total buy, which is pretty amazing. I will take that. I'm probably in the money on that purchase already, having sold 5 or 6 books out of it, but this one by itself was more than half of the total expenditure on 122 books. Those are fun. That's why I talk about a lot of times these bulk buys. 1 or 2 nice hits, and the lot has paid for itself. So let me know down in the comments, did you get something out of today's show? And if you did, please do me a favor again and hit that thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. You can also share this with anyone you know who might be interested in it. Remember, members get access to these shows first. So if you'd like to sign up for a membership, you will get early access to these shows, in addition to a handful of other little perky perks. So with that, it's time to wrap this thing up. I hope everybody is having a good week. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.